Hey, welcome back to Your Faith is Your Fortune by Neville Goddard, broken down by Rob. We are going to be diving into Chapter 2, You Shall Decree. This is a little bit different than even what I did in the first video. I'm actually going to comment as I read, along with provide my illustrations and whatnot as I go along here. So thanks for bearing with me with my growing pains here. Job 22:28 says, Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall come to thee, and light shall shine in thy ways. Isaiah 55:11 says, So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. A brief comment on this verse. If you've ever gardened before, and I've done minimal gardening, but last year for the first time, I had a patch near my house that's just been a big problem spot for a number of years, and I finally got the guts to put some seed down and try to grow grass there. And I had tried doing gardens and stuff in it before, just never really understood how to do it. But I did plant grass seed, and I understood how to plant the grass seed. And it did this year, looking at it now, it's beautiful. And it's green, and it's really amazing. And it went forth. That seed went out and accomplished exactly what I sent it for. It prospered in the thing. I sent it out, and it proved successful, prosperous. And there's something we're going to be learning about in this chapter about what is the word that goes forth, that actually succeeds. That's decreeing. Man can decree a thing and it will come to pass. As I'm reading this, I believe that that's true. I also have an underlying belief that, yes, that's true perhaps some of the time in my life and mainly true for other people. But if I'm really honest with myself on a deep level, I don't really believe that it's been true for me. And I'm changing my mind to believe that it can be. I was wondering what decree actually means here. Man can decree a thing and it will come to pass. I figured decree, it's important to understand what that word is. And so I looked it up. I can't pronounce the Hebrew. When I was in seminary, my focus was on Greek, not Hebrew. But the word, as I looked it up in Vine's Expository Dictionary, described it as to cut or to decide, or particularly from Vine's, an opinion expressed with authority. When I think about it, really anything I decide to do is an opinion. And if I do it, it's an opinion with authority. So to decree something is not merely to say, I will do such and such, but it's a kind of conviction and powerful speaking or believing that it will come to pass. When something is decreed, it is a statement of how things will be, not how things are. So going back to Neville saying this, man can decree a thing and it will come to pass. I believe that's possible. That feels true to me. Now he's going to take a step further. Man has always decreed that which has appeared in his world. He is today decreeing that which is appearing in his world, and he shall continue to do so as long as man is conscious of being man. To me, this feels like he's going straight for the jugular. He's saying that all that has appeared in my world, from the ridiculousness of 2020 and the world events that have happened to other things that have happened, suffering in my life, it was decreed by me. I believe the only way this could be true is if somehow I have been doing this unconsciously and have not yet tapped into the power of doing it consciously. So maybe faith, as we're going through this, maybe faith is the conscious decreeing. That is hard for me to believe, that my world is a reflection of my beliefs. It's easier to believe that I'm just a part of a bigger world that I don't really have control over, but I don't really want to believe that any longer. So nothing has appeared in man's world but what man decreed that it should. This you may deny, but try as you will, you cannot disprove it, for this decreeing is based upon a changeless principle. This is tough. I can look at my television, my couch, my home, my clothing, and I can come to this agreement. But what do I do about world events and suffering? The suffering of my friends and my family, of myself? Neville says I can't disprove this. And I guess that's true because the nearest example that I can think of is the dream world. I don't consciously populate my dream world, yet in it are entities and circumstances that are beyond my conscious creation or control that creates, and it can create suffering in my awareness. A nightmare is a perfect example of this, right? I didn't consciously want to have a nightmare, and yet subconsciously I create that world for myself. So is the suffering in my life, in this reality, a nightmare that I can wake up from? Is the problem that I've been living my life, is the problem that I have been living my life asleep and unaware of my conscious creative power? As I was reading this, what came to mind was a scene from the movie Inception. And I really love Inception, but this scene to me takes the cake. Cobb, the protagonist, is talking to Ariadne, the architect who he's going to employ to help him create dream worlds, is having this conversation. He says, when we're asleep, our mind can do almost anything. She says, such as? Well, imagine you're designing a building, you consciously create each aspect. But sometimes it feels like it's almost creating itself, if you know what I mean. She says, yeah, like I'm discovering it. He says, genuine inspiration, right? Discovering this. Now, in a dream, here's the part. Our mind continuously does this. We create and perceive our world simultaneously. And our mind does this so well that we don't even know that it's happening. That allows us to get right in the middle of that process. How, she asks? By taking over the creative part. This, the ability to take over the creative part of our reality, that's what Neville is suggesting I have the power to do. Maybe he's not even suggesting. I think he's just laying it out. That's what he's stating. I can think of a couple times in my life where I went lucid during a dream, meaning while I was in the dream, I became aware that I was dreaming and was able to stick around and mess with the dream before waking up. The first thing I did whenever I became lucid, the first thing I ever did was fly, because of course, why not? It's amazing. But it didn't take long before I knew I was dreaming, then I woke up. Alan Watts says that, how do we know that's not what we are doing now? How do we know that we are not creating and perceiving this reality simultaneously? I don't think it's possible to disprove this, but it's one thing to throw down the challenge to disproving it, but is it possible to prove it? We could say, you can't disprove that there's the flying spaghetti monster flying in the sky, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but can I prove it? And that's what I want to find out as I go on this journey. Getting back to Neville, man does not command things to appear by his words, which are, more often than not, a confession of his doubts and fears. Decreeing is ever done in consciousness. I think about how that stands true to me. Man doesn't command things to appear by his words. I think that's one of the reasons why many of the affirmations that I've tried haven't really worked, or I haven't worked them properly, or whatever. I can't just say, I will have $1 million, or I will have enough money for all of my expenses, or I will be free of all resentments towards those who've harmed me. The words that come out of my mouth, more often than not, I feel that, are a confession of my doubts and my fears. But what about this? And what about that? And how about this? And so it's not an incantation. It's not magic words. That's not what he's saying. It's not magic words. This creative act is done in consciousness. And I'd like to know more about that. He goes on, every man automatically expresses that which he is conscious of being. Without effort or the use of words, at every moment of time, man is commanding himself to be and to possess that which he is conscious of being and possessing. So, like that Inception quote, though, how do we take over this creative part? Neville is saying that I automatically express whatever I am conscious of being, and this consciousness of being is a decree that automatically brings about circumstances that prove the decree. So I want to know more. This changeless principle of expression is dramatized in all the Bibles of the world. The writers of our sacred books were illumined mystics, past masters in the art of psychology. In telling the story of the soul, they personified this impersonal principle in the form of a historical document, both to preserve it and to hide it from the eyes of the uninitiated. Now, coming from my background, this is heresy. This is massively dangerous to a view of the Bible that it is a historical document. I mean, I grew up in a stream where it was reasonable to understand the Bible is a blend of books, of poetry, of apocalyptic literature, of history, of music or song. And so it wasn't that every single thing literally had to be true, that there's literally a seven-eyed, beast or seven-headed beast that's going to come out, in Revelation or something like. In my stream, there was an understanding that you can have different parts of the Bible be different forms of literature and accept them. But the history parts, they were history. Genesis, the creation story, that's what literally happened. The Exodus literally happened. The conquest of Canaan and all of its corresponding miracles and genocide literally happened. Jesus was a literal person who lived 2,000 years ago and did certain things. And the literal side of it was stressed to me. And so Neville is saying here, though, that the authors were trying to tell the story of the soul, but they told it in these different forms to preserve the truth and to hide it from the uninitiated. And this sounds conspiratorial to me, but even the Bible itself, I was thinking about it, and even the Bible itself gives testimony to this. In particular, in Mark 4, this isn't Neville, but this is straight from Mark 4:10-12. Listen what Jesus said. When he tells a story, a parable, one of the most powerful parables, by the way, that would be a good one to break down on this channel at some point. But what he says is, Jesus was alone, the parable of the sower and the seed. Those around him, the 12, asked him about the parables, and he said to them, "To you has been given the secret of the kingdom of God. But for those outside, everything is in parables, so that they may indeed see but not perceive, and may indeed hear but not understand, lest they should turn and be forgiven. And I'm not here to take a dump on all of organized religion and all of that, but I will say that in my own life, I do feel like the Bible is something that I studied at the undergrad and graduate level, and yet I did not understand it. I could read it. I would make my syllogisms based off of it. I could sentence diagram. I could do something called arcing, where I organize all the clauses. But I was missing it. I was getting caught up in the story rather than the meaning behind it. And when I tried to dive into the meaning behind it, it just didn't work for me. It just never seemed to work. Getting back to Neville, today, those to whom this great treasure has been entrusted, namely the priesthoods of the world, someone that I was aspiring to be in Bible college and seminary, they have forgotten that the Bibles are psychological dramas representing the consciousness of man. In their blind forgetfulness, they now teach their followers to worship its characters as men and women who actually lived in time and space. When I think about one of the key things as a Protestant evangelical Bible Belt Christian was the statement, I believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins. That was it was crucial that I believe that Jesus, a historical person who lived a particular life 2,000 years ago, died at a particular geographical point on the globe and took on all of the anger that the invisible Father had at me for my sins, and then punished Jesus for all the punishment that I deserved. And so now I'm called to or required to worship this character, Jesus, this person who lives on in an invisible realm, and I'm to worship him and develop some kind of relationship with him in gratitude for what he had done to basically make God stop being so mad at me. And Neville is, needless to say, he is not a fan of that viewpoint. And he is challenging me right now to say that if I can get past needing the Bible to be literally true, it's going to open up something more. And I was going down that pathway of becoming one of those priests, and at the least I can say I didn't feel authentic with it, and I'm glad that I didn't go down that road at the time, because I felt like I would be telling people things that I myself did not really believe deep down. This impersonal principle of life, which made all things, is personified as God in the Bible. This Lord God, creator of heaven and earth, is discovered to be man's awareness of being. If man were less bound by orthodoxy and more intuitively observant, he could not fail to notice in the reading of the Bibles that the awareness of being is revealed hundreds of times throughout this literature. To name a few. And this to me is the crux of it, I think. Exodus 3:14, I am hath sent me unto you. I honestly can't think of a more shape the rest of how I understand the Bible than this. I am hath sent me unto you. It's not like his name is Buford and he's the one who sent me. That's just his title. That's what he goes by. No, it's an essential component of who this character in the Bible is, of God. I am hath sent me unto you. Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. I am the Lord your God, and there is no other, Joel 2:27. I am the good shepherd, John 10, verse 11. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in it, he shall be saved and shall go in and out and find pasture. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. John 14:6. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last, and I might add everything in between. Revelation 22:13. I am. Man's unconditioned awareness of being is revealed as Lord and Creator of every conditioned state of being. If we go back to that the first chapter from the last video, if you remember this illustration, that I am and the conception of myself, the unconditioned, let me get my little pointer out here, the unconditioned awareness of being is revealed as Lord and Creator of every conditioned state of being. Meaning, right here, the unconditioned awareness, I am. Before I'm anything else, I am. That's revealed as the Lord and Creator of everything that follows. Every conditioned state of being. I am. Man's unconditioned awareness of being. It's the Lord, it's the God of this. If man would give up his belief in a God apart from himself, recognize his awareness of being to be God, this awareness fashions itself in the likeness and image of its conception of itself, he would transform his world from a barren waste to a fertile field of his own liking. Now, this is a rather complicated sentence, especially with that parenthetical. But it is a bold, bold promise. And I think it's important to clearly understand this phrase first. Two from this paragraph. The first one is a God apart from himself. If man would give up his belief in a God apart from himself. It's really important to understand that Neville is not saying man is God. I think Neville would also agree that that itself would be blasphemy. That is incorrect. Man is not God. It is man's awareness of being that is God. So if you think about, did I not have that? There we go. I am. So here's a sentence. I am Rob. So I am is awareness, and I illustrate it. I illustrate the formless, shapeless, immortal, invisible God with an eyeball, which is forming him. But whatever, who cares? So I am Rob. I am aware. When I say I am Rob, I'm simply saying I am aware of being Rob. So the person, the body that I see in the mirror, the thoughts that I have, anybody who's done meditation will understand this. At some level, you can detach, and your awareness is, you become aware of being aware. You become aware that I am not my thoughts. My thoughts come from somewhere, from me, but I am not my thoughts, and I am not who I am. And every night that you dream, to a degree, we forget who we are. We forget maybe perhaps what house we live in, and we live in a house from our childhood or in a completely different house. We forget where we were, but we're still aware. We are still aware. And so when he says, I wish I had the quote up. Can I pull it up? Is it possible? Yeah, a God apart from himself is, don't think of, can I get this pulled up properly? Oh, I thought I had another illustration of this. I guess I didn't finish it. Oh, well. Anyway, don't think of God, I guess what he's saying is, don't think of God like somewhere out here, and here is man. Man is, that there is an awareness inside man of who he is, and that, if we stop thinking of God as some invisible sky daddy, like out here, another person distinct from me, rather than my awareness of being, my I am. This is God, this is not. This is God, this is a creation of God. I am is God, Rob is not. So I think that's a stumbling block at the beginning when I came across Neville was it's as if he's saying Rob is God. No, Rob is not God. He's a part of God. Rob exists, moves, lives, and has his being in God. But he himself is not. I'm just one expression of him. I'm just a child of him. I am I guess that's what it means to be a creation of God. Is this dependent part of me is not greater than this part. I guess we'll get into that. Let me just dive in here. If that helps anyway, I don't know if it helps you, it helps me to understand that giving up of a belief of God being out there, but rather God being my awareness of being, is going to be crucial to understand the rest of this book. The other part of this is a fertile field of his own liking. That, to me, it's the hope of this. That by giving up my old theological viewpoint that God is this otherly entity that I am fundamentally separate from. That when they say things like God is holy, he's different, he's altogether apart from us. He is transcendent and immanent, and he is holy and separate, and yet he's near and in everything. And like there's a lot of contradictory ideas I can't wrap my mind around, but I would say that by giving up this idea that God is out there and that I'm waiting for him to just be nice to me and do something good for me and I beg him for things, instead to embrace that God is inside me, my own awareness of being. He is the one observing me talking right now. He is the one inside you observing you listening to this or commenting on this or liking or subscribing to this. God is the awareness behind it. And the wager that Neville is making here is if we give up belief that God is something outside of us, that if I give up that belief and instead I believe that this awareness fashions itself as it believes itself to be something, I will transform my world from a barren waste like my lawn outside, that little patch, into a fertile field of whatever it is I want to put in there. I can grow. And I want that so badly. The day man does this, Neville says, he will know that he and his Father are one, but his Father is greater than he. He will know that his consciousness of being is one with that which he is conscious of being, but that his unconditioned consciousness of being is greater than his conditioned state or his conception of himself. Illustrated simply, the awareness is greater than the, once we go back to this I am Rob thing, the I am is greater than anything that comes before it, or after it, I'm sorry. Anything that is conditioned. I am is always greater than whatever I am imagines itself to be. If you think about like a video game, this at least helps me. In a video game, I control a character. I am that character. That character and I are one, but I am greater than the character. Everything that the character experiences, I experience. And you could even say that video game character says, I do everything that the Father, the one controlling me, does. Everything I see him do, I do. Jesus said that everything I see the Father doing, I do. I only do what the Father tells me to do. And I could get off on a whole huge, Christology thing, and I'm just not going to do that. Let's just finish up what Neville has to say about this. But when man discovers his consciousness to be the impersonal power of expression, which power eternally personifies itself in his conceptions of himself, he will assume and appropriate that state of consciousness which he desires to express. In so doing, he will become that state in expression. Using our little color thing that we've been using so far, red being the awareness of being, green being the transcending arrow from our last chapter, he will assume and appropriate that state of consciousness which he desires to express. In so doing, he will become that state in expression. I think this is the key. I think the green, that is, and the red together, that is faith. That's what Neville's arguing for. This is what is meant by your faith is your fortune. My ability to assume and appropriate a state of consciousness that I desire to express is what will cause me to transcend from one state to the next. Neville says, "Ye shall decree a thing, and it shall come to pass, can now be told in this manner. You shall become conscious of being or possessing a thing, and you shall express or possess that which you are conscious of being." I think that's so important. I made a little illustration for it, using the illustrations from last chapter. So we've got the quote at the top here. You shall become conscious of being or possessing a thing, and you shall express or possess that which you are conscious of being. So let's begin with a statement. I am not valuable. Let's say that's your world. That's my world. I always feel like I'm up against the wall. I'm not capable of really offering a great degree of value to the world, except just maybe a job where I just do menial stuff and there's nothing really unique about me. I'm not valuable or interesting or unique. And then I become conscious of something else I want. I want to believe I am valuable to others. So I become conscious of this desire, this I am valuable to others, but it's outside of myself. My world is this thing here. I want to believe this, but all I see in my world is this. What has to happen is I want to change my focus, my consciousness. Can I guide and direct my consciousness or my state of being to feeling like I am valuable to others, even while I still exist in this world? So I feel this to be true even when my world is still trying to show me this. So, you shall become conscious of being or possessing a thing, and you shall express or possess that which you are conscious of being. So then this happens. As I hold on to this, it changes. My world will change. I don't know how long it takes. I guess it depends on the thing I'm trying to manifest or bring into my world. But my skill or my ability to hold on, that seems to be what faith is. Can I hold on? Let me see. Can I hold on to this while this is still happening? Can I hold on to that? Until now, what I was conscious of being becomes my world. The law of consciousness is the only law of expression. The only law of expression. I am the way. I am the resurrection. Consciousness is the way as well as the power which resurrects and expresses all that man will ever be conscious of being. So turn from the blindness of the uninitiated man who attempts to express and possess those qualities and things which he is not conscious of being and possessing, and be as the illumined mystic who decrees on the basis of this changeless law. Consciously claim yourself to be that which you seek. Appropriate the consciousness of that which you see, and you too will know the status of the true mystic as follows. I became conscious of being it. I am still conscious of being it, and I shall continue to be conscious of being it until that which I am conscious of being is perfectly expressed. If you think about these sentences here, I became conscious of being it. That's this part of the illustration. I became conscious, like I became aware that this is actually what I'd like. I became conscious of being it. Now, I am still conscious of being it, in spite of the fact that my world is not showing it to me yet. And I shall continue to be conscious of being it until that which I am conscious of being is perfectly expressed. So this little guy right here seems to be the primary skill or the it's holding on to the I am until it happens here. So the what I'm conscious of being, I should say. I am this. Holding on to that in spite of this until my world reflects it. And not letting the world tell me who I am, but I tell the world who I am. I let the I am shape my world. I let God define my reality, not my reality define me. And I don't know what the limits are of being able to do this and how far I can take this in the game of life that I'm playing. And I know it would be tempting to say, well, fine, can't you just believe that you're a flying unicorn who... I don't really care about that right now. Practically speaking, I care about changing my reality, getting in touch with the desires. Do I really desire to be a flying unicorn who can do all? No, I don't. I don't care about that. And it's kind of a cheesy objection. I want to be more than I am now. And in order to do that, I have to develop the skill, it seems like, of becoming conscious and continuing to be conscious of it. What's the mechanism? How does this work? He's already said in this chapter, it's not merely by words. That's not the decree. It's somehow a state of being. He'll get into it with exercises and stuff like that. But for right now, it's important to understand that this mechanism is how change happens and how my world will change from a barren wasteland into a fertile field where I can plant things and actually see it come to pass. I can decree things and it will come to pass. Yes, he says at the end of the chapter, Neville says, yes, I shall decree a thing and it shall come to pass. So when I think about the old awareness that I might have, I'm going to change up my format here, versus the new awareness, the I am becoming something new. The old awareness is my world is the product of bad luck, fate, or a hostile world that does not reward me. The new awareness I want to cultivate, that I am cultivating, is my world is whatever I am conscious of being. The old awareness is I am not capable of changing my awareness. Whereas the new awareness is I am a man who changes my awareness according to what I want to see expressed in my world. My old awareness is I am not good at holding fast until my world changes. And the new awareness is I am calm and serene as I hold fast to the vision from my higher self. My old awareness is I am waiting on an external savior to rescue me. And my new awareness is my savior is inside me, my awareness of being who is greater than Rob. And if there's one Bible verse that popped into my mind to illustrate this, it's from 1 John 4:4. Little children, you are from God and have overcome them. For he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. That's chapter 2. Your faith is your fortune, and what I've gotten out of it. The next chapter is going to be even longer to take to break down, so it might take me a couple of days to put it together. Thank you for listening. If you found this helpful, I'm so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, because this does allow other people to be exposed to it. It's how the algorithm works. So if you would love to help me, I would appreciate it so much for you doing something as easy and simple as that. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.